Hello, my name is Caleb Finns, and this is my narrated PowerPoint of my research paper, Silk Road, The Rise and Demise. So how does the internet and dark web work? So as you can see by the graphic, the actual, what most people know as the World Wide Web, is only about 4% of what makes up all of the internet's traffic. Usually about 90% of that is the deep web, which is stuff you can't access through, Chrome or Internet Explorer. It's all this government resources and academic information. So how the dark web works is it uses a domain name with a top level domain. So what top level domain is it's one of the extensions at the end of a URL. It's either .edu for a government or for an educational institute, .gov for a government website, or as most people have .coms. But what a .onion is it's an extension that is used by the Tor network, which is a hidden services free open source network device, and pretty much it's a browser that you launch, and if you make a website with the Tor network, a .onion, it routes all of its traffic through many servers that are anonymous, so it's very hard for government entities and other authorities to track illegal websites on the internet. Who is Ross Ulbright? So Ross Ulbright is the creator of the Silk Road. His full name is Ross William Ulbright. He was born on March 27th, 1984. He had a relatively easy early life, came from a middle-class family. He even achieved the rank of Eagle Scout in high school, the most prestigious Boy Scout rank. And he went to get a BS, Bachelor's of Science in Physics from the University of Texas, Dallas. After this, he got a master's degree from Penn State in materials science, and that is really where the idea of Silk Road kind of started. So how it started was he had many libertarian values that he learned at Penn State. He no longer had faith in the government, and he started to realize that people needed to be free on their own, and he maybe thought he was the one who could do that. He's also known as Dread Pirate Roberts from The Princess Bride, and he is the founder and sole administrator of Silk Road. So what is Silk Road? Silk Road was an anonymous marketplace that was made in 2011 so you could trade freely without any fear of interference from any sort of government entity. So how the Silk Road worked was it used that Tor network I talked about earlier that routed all the Silk Road's traffic through tons of servers, and it was all encrypted data, so it makes it very hard to trace back to any one buyer or seller. It also utilized the cryptocurrency Bitcoin, so that with Bitcoin, it's also very hard to trace back to any seller. So a lot of its success came from media coverage. As soon as this website launched, within about 2 months, there was tons and tons of media coverage from big websites, Forbes, Wired Magazine, everything like that. And really, that's when all the youth started reading it and started buying Bitcoin and getting on the Silk Road so they could go and buy whatever they wanted. Usually, most Silk Road purchases were narcotics. Precisely 70% of Silk Road was actually narcotic sales. So something about Ross's administration was he realized that anonymous marketplace made people very hard to trust. So what he did with his transactions was when people would sell something and another person would buy it, the buyer sends the Bitcoin into an escrow account that Ross Ulbright, or like the Silk Road, actually administered. So it would sit in that escrow account until all the purchases and the shipping were confirmed and the item was shipped, and then that Bitcoin would go from the Silk Road escrow into the actual seller's account. And that was just a little checks and balances system to make sure no one was trying to scam on the website. So the investigation and arrest of Ross Ulbright. So Ross Ulbright was discovered on a Bitcoin forum by an IRS agent by the name of Gary Alford. So what Gary Alford did was he was assigned to look into the Silk Road finances and see what he could find out about this dark web website. So what he found out is he scrolled through all these different forums, finding the earliest mention of Silk Road, trying to go back and way back into 2011, because he was investigating in 2013. So he was trying to go back to 2011 on the internet and find anything he could in the forums. And what he found was someone with the username Altoid that was talking about how he could create some sort of anonymous marketplace, a government or a economic simulation where the government could not interfere, and it could be an anonymous marketplace using Bitcoin, the Tor browser. And then after he found this, he also found the same username Altoid on a Bitcoin forum asking for help on how to set up a Bitcoin payment system on a website. And the way that this username Altoid was using his information was he said, anybody that can help me, please email me at my Gmail account, rossolbright at gmail.com. And that's actually how the government first figured out and put together that Dread Pirate Roberts / Altoid / Frosty was Ross Ulbright. So once all the dots and the pieces were put together, Ross was apprehended in San Francisco on October 2nd, 2013 in Glen Park Library. So how they apprehended him was that two FBI agents acted like an arguing couple, and once Ross's attention was diverted, two more FBI agents took his computer and uploaded a flash drive that copied all key files from his computer onto the flash drive. So after all this happened, Ross was charged with 7 crimes, including money laundering and conspiracy to commit murder, and he was concurrently sentenced to 2 life imprisonments without the possibility of parole. And during this investigation, federal agencies, including the DEA and FBI, seized millions in escrow Bitcoin from the Silk Road. Did Silk Road make Bitcoin mainstream? So this is a little bit more controversial. Some people think it did, some people think it didn't. But through my research, I noticed that the current price of Bitcoin is a lot lower than its all-time high. But even then, when it was being used in 2013, it was very low. It was only trading for about $90 to $200. And the Silk Road used only Bitcoin as its method of payment. So considering the Silk Road had almost 1 million users that were using Bitcoin at the time in 2013 when it was not very used, can attribute to Bitcoin's success. And also, there is only currently 18 million Bitcoins in circulation. And of those 18 million, 9 million have been through the Silk Road website. So therefore, half of all Bitcoin has been through Silk Road, which is an easy indicator to say that Silk Road maybe not have made Bitcoin mainstream, but definitely had an effect on Bitcoin's use in its less popular days. FBI cybercrime and Silk Road 2.0. So before the Silk Road bust, the FBI cybercrime division was not that well known. Pretty much, it was just kind of like this division that everyone thought was a bunch of nerds that sat in an office and didn't do too much except for, maybe stop some bad websites or movie pirating every now and then. But once they busted the Silk Road, the largest anonymous marketplace ever created on the internet, they actually gained some notoriety and some very famous interviews with some of its agents, and was even in a couple dark web movies. And so, after the downfall of Silk Road 2.0 was launched by other administrators of the website that claimed that, Ross was being unjustly imprisoned and that they were going to keep his legacy alive. So, the Silk Road 2.0 website had some hiccups from the start. They had too much traffic on the website, so their servers kept crashing, and then it turned out their servers weren't really secure, and people were starting to judge how secure their servers was because they didn't want the FBI to get them to the new buyers and sellers. So from the beginning, it had some hiccups, and eventually, in an operation called Operation Animus, it was also seized with 14 other dark web websites, and this operation was a joint coalition task force that was made up of DEA, FBI, Interpol, and Eurojust and other European nations that in the end seized 14 different websites. Ross Ulbright post-trial. So currently Ross is incarcerated at USB Tucson. His mother moved to Tucson to see him all the time, and he's made several appeals to lawyers about how they withheld evidence and other things of that sort, and all his appeals have failed. He even made an appeal to the Supreme Court asking for a Supreme Court review, and they unanimously rejected his appeal. So, looks like Ross will not be out of custody anytime soon. He's probably going to serve those 2 life imprisonments. And he is currently at USP Tucson. He has other high-profile prisoners with him, murderers, rapists, and the big question of this research paper is, does someone that simply created a website free of government intervention where people could do what they want, does he deserve to be locked up with murderers and rapists and other very violent criminals? And that is the end. Thank you for listening.